you wouldn't want to be on the first flying machine, a high-soaring ride you'd rather not take. Written by Ian Graham, illustrated by David Antrim. Inspirations. In 1878, when you are 7 years old and Wilbur's 11, your father brings home a toy helicopter. Flying toys have been made for at least 500 years. You both enjoy flying your toy and even make your own copies of it when you grow up. You work in the family's bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio. In the 1890s, newspaper stories about gliders big enough to carry a person inspire you to study flight again. You read everything you can find about flying machines and decide to try building your own. When you begin, you think they probably won't be successful. Why can't we fly? Wings and feathers, strong chest muscles. Weak chest muscles, heavy build, compared to birds. We are very heavy and our bodies aren't streamlined. We also don't have wings. Gliding flights. In 1896, you read about a German innovator, Otto Lilienthal, who's building gliders and flying them successfully, though sadly Lilienthal dies in a glider accident the same year. Control. Pilots control their gliders by shifting their body weight. You think there must be a better way to steer. Handy hint. Copying birds is not the answer. Birds and humans are just too different from each other. They make it look so easy. You and Wilbur have built a model aircraft since childhood. Your father encourages you to solve problems by looking for the answers in books. Flappers. Some people try to build full-size copies of ornithopters, flying toys with flapping wings left. None of them work. On a wing and a prayer. You and your brother want to build a powered airplane, but you decide to build a glider before you tackle something with an engine. That means designing wings, but what shape should they be and how big? You make small models to try out different shapes. Then in 1899, you build a much bigger model with a wingspan of 5 feet, 1.5 meters. You choose a biplane design with 2 wings above the other. It isn't big enough to carry a person, but you can fly as a kite. Hold on to me, Wilbur. The biplane is made from a wooden frame covered with fabric. You paint it with a type of varnish to seal the fabric so the air can't blow through it. When you try, it actually flies in a strong gust of wind. It can lift you off the ground. Your next step is to build a glider big enough to carry a man. The perfect place. Your hometown of Dayton, Ohio isn't windy enough to test gliders. You ask the U.S. Weather Bureau to help you find a windier place. You choose Kill Devil Hills near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. You think it's windy enough here at Orville. Handy hint. Before you take off, think about how you're going to land. Airfoil, lower pressure. The curved shape of a wing called an airfoil creates an upward force called lift. The curved top makes air flowing over its speed up. According to Bernoulli's principle, speeding up air lowers pressure. Lowering air pressure above a wing causes the air below to move upward, lifting the wing. How it works. Lift can Yeah, how it works. Lift can be demonstrated with a sheet of paper folded over a pencil and the paper ends taped together. The pencil should be held level with the high persons to a held level with the person's lower lip so the wing hangs down where air is blown over the top paper. The top paper rises. Blowing lowers the air pressure over the wing and creates lift pulling it upward. The first gliders, your first full-size glider has a wingspan of 17 feet, 5.2 meters. The pilot lies on the lower wing. He climbs or dives by tilting an elevator at the front. The challenge is to become the glider. If you don't balance a bicycle, it will crash. And the same is true of an aircraft. You and Wilbur develop a balancing system of pulling wires to twist the glider's wingtips. You call it wing wrapping. Sadly, your glider doesn't fly very well. The next one you build is even worse. Your designs rely on research done by Otto Lilienthal. Perhaps he got it wrong? Plagued by mosquitoes. Living at Kill Devil Hills is no picnic. Mosquitoes swarm over their dunes. You write home, they chew us clear through our underwear and socks. Lumps begin swelling up all over my legs. Stopwatch, stopwatch. All of the glider flights are timed to the precise second. Clinometer is used to measure how steeply each glider climbs or dives. Anemometer. Wind speed is measured with the anemometer. Its propeller spins and a dial shows the speed. Wing wrapping. Makes a plane roll to one side by charging the shape of its wings. The wingtips on one side twist up at the front and down at the back, producing more lift. The other wingtips twist in the opposite direction, producing less lift. You should get more exercise, Wilbur. Handy hint. Don't let the plane's nose tip up too much. This disturbs the airflow over the wing and the plane will stall. An aircraft can move in three ways: pitch, roll, and yaw. Pitch. An aircraft's pitch changes when its nose rises or falls. Roll. An aircraft rolls or banks when one wing rises and the other falls. Yaw. An aircraft yaws when its nose turns to the left or right. Back to the drawing board. You now realize that you are not going to make further progress by relying on facts and figures from other people. So you decide to do your own research. In 1901, you go home to Dayton with notes on the flight you have made that year. You build all sorts of devices to test different shapes of wings. Since you don't have much money, everything is built using materials, tools, and equipment you already have on hand. This includes a test machine made out of a bicycle and a wind tunnel made from a wooden box, a fan, and your workshop motor. Armed with your own research results, you can now start work on designing a completely new glider. Bicycle test rig. The bicycle has an extra wheel on top with the flat plate on one side and a model wing airfoil standing on end on the other side. As you ride, wind hits the plate and the wing tries to turn the wheel in opposite directions by trying different model wings and seeing how much the wheel turns. You can tell which wing is best. Flat plate model wing. Wind tunnel. The most useful of all your test machines is a wind tunnel. A fan blows air throughout it and approximately 30 miles, 48 kilometers per hour, so that you can test different shaped wings. Handy hint, wind tunnels will become an essential tool for testing aircraft designs. Perfection. In 1902, after experimenting with glider designs, you and Wilbur go back to Kitty Hawk with the new glider number 3. This has been designed using the results of your latest research and tests. Its wings are narrower than earlier gliders, and it has 2 tall vanes at the back. It works better than your previous design, but there are still a few problems to iron out. You find it flies better with wingtips slightly downward, and the tail needs some change to make it easier to control. In turns, by the time you're finished with it, number 3 is the world's first fully controllable aircraft. It is so successful that you decide you are ready to move on to the next step, building a powered aircraft. The number 3 Wright glider of 1902 looks slender and graceful because it's longer, narrow wings above. After the research went to its design, it flies beautifully too. However, number 3 can be tricky. It turns one time when you are piloting, it slides sideways and slams into the ground. Luckily, you are dazed but injured. Turning problem. You discuss how to solve the problem of gliding in the glider's tail. The tail is finally linked to the wing wrapping cradle below. Now the glider rolls, the tail swivels automatically and keeps the aircraft under control. Perfection. Handy hint. Borrow a sewing machine from the postmaster's wife to mend the fabric wings. Rudder. You decide to change the tail so that it has one movable vane, a rudder below instead of 2 fixed vanes. This gives the pilot more control in turns. Power. It is calculated that you need 8 horsepower engine weighing up to 181 pounds, 82 kilograms to power your new aircraft. At first, you think you'll be able to buy one from the many engine making companies you know, but when the time comes, you can't get what you want, so you and your brother decide to build the engine yourselves. Your bicycle mechanic, Charles Taylor, helps you with the design and then builds it for you. It has 4 cylinders and burns ordinary gasoline. It is ready for testing in only 6 weeks. Your engine is good enough for the short test flights you are planning if your aircraft takes off. One engine. You and Wilbur write to supplies what details of the engine you need, but none are able to supply the right engine at the right price. Build it yourself. Your mechanic, Charles Taylor, Your mechanic, Charles Taylor, builds you an engine without any detailed plans above. You and Wilbur sketch the parts you need. Taylor makes them amazingly. It actually works. Success. The finished engine, lighter and more powerful than you can expect it. This means you can make the plane heavier and stronger, and it will still take off if you hope. Handy hint: if you want a job done properly, do it yourself. Engine made by Charles Taylor and the Wright brothers. Spinning props. An engine cannot fly an airplane by itself. A propeller is needed to push an aircraft through the air. You and Wilbur think you can simply redesign ship propellers to produce a propeller that works in the air, but you are amazed by trial and error. You first have to figure out how ship propellers function before designing your own propellers. You decide to use driven by chains from the engine, mounting the propellers behind the wings means that they won't interfere with the smooth airflow over the wings. You have a terrible temper. I have a terrible temper. Arguments. You and your brother are great arguers. You often hash out tricky problems by shouting at each other at the top of your lungs. Ship propellers. You and Wilbur want to model airplane propellers on ship propellers. The trouble is no one has properly figured out how to design them. Even the people who make ship propellers do not know why they are the shape they are. Handy hint: make your 2 propellers in opposite directions, then the plane won't pull to one side as it flies. The Wright propellers are tested to make sure your theories and calculations are correct. Each wooden propeller is 8.5 feet, 2.6 meters from tip to tip. Building the Flyer. Your first powered aircraft, the Flyer, has a wooden frame and a wingspan of 40 feet, 12.2 meters. There are 2 elevators at the front and 2 rudders at the back. The wing elevators and rudders are covered with fabric. the engine is mounted on the lower wing. But there's still no seat. The pilot lies on its stomach in a cradle that from side up to wrap the wings. There are no wheels. Either the flyer rests on a trolley on a long rail. When the plane takes off, the trolley falls away. When it lands again, it simply skids to a halt on the ground. Well, it's taken 4 years. Let's hope it works. Making a wing. Flyers' wings are made from wooden ribs running from front to back. These are attached to beams called spars, which run the length of the wings. Cloth is then stretched over the top and bottom surfaces of each wing. Wooden spar, wooden ribs, fabric covering. Handy hint. Wood is the perfect material for ribs and spars because it is light, strong, and flexible. The takeoff rail slopes downhill so the plane's takeoff will be assisted gravity. The sandy, uneven ground has been leveled by recent flooding. The first flight ever. Preparations for the first flight are made on the morning of December 14, 1903. You toss a coin to decide who will pilot the flyer. Wilbur wins. He lies down in the wrap cradle and the engine is started. The plane moves away down the launch rail, gathers speed and lifts off. Be patient. Wind conditions have to be just right before you can attempt to take off. Then disaster. It plows into the sand. It is December 17. You can try again. Now it's your turn to be the pilot. 5 other people witness the attempt. This time the plane sails away into the wind and lands 12 seconds later, approximately 120 feet, 36 meters away. You take 3 more flights that day. You've made history. Start the engine. The plane is held while the engine starts. When it reaches full speed, the plane is released. Get ready. You lend your camera to one of the witnesses, John Daniels, who aims at the spot where the flyer is expected to leave the ground. Image of the first flight, December 17, 1903. Daniel presses the button. At the moment, a historic photograph similar to the image above of the first airplane flight. Handy hint. Raise a red flag to summon the lifeguards from the nearby beach. They'll help you move the plane and act as a witness too. They done it. And now next year's model. Making history once would be enough for most people, but not Wilbur and Orville. Right now you build a series of new planes, each improving on the one before. The first is Flyer 2, built in 1904. The greater engine power means that you do not need strong winds to take off. So you leave Kitty Hawk and start flying at Huffman Prairie, closer to your home in Dayton in 1905. You built Flyer 3. This is the first really practical airplane, and you finally have an aircraft that can make longer flights. You can bank, turn, fly in circles, make figure eights, whatever you want. Flyer 3's longest flight lasts for 39 minutes. At the end of the original Flyer, later in the same days as its historic flights, the original Flyer was hit by a gust of wind. John Daniels tried to hold it down, but it turned over, injuring him. The Flyer was damaged so badly it never flew again. Flyer 3 is longer than earlier models. Its elevators are farther forward and its rudders are farther back. This makes it easier to control. Handy hint, don't forget launching along a rail, the wind isn't always right for takeoff. So you invent a way to take off that doesn't rely on the wind. A falling weight tugs a rope that pulls the airplane right along its launch trail. Handy hint, don't forget to get a patent on your new invention. You don't want anyone stealing your ideas. Raising the weight. Before each flight, the 1,600 pounds, 726 kilograms weight has to be raised to the top of the lower right. It is usually done by a group of volunteers pulling on a rope. Then the rope is hooked up onto the plane. Launch system with weight. Take a seat. In 1907, you and Wilbur built an airplane with a seat. The Type A, as it becomes known as improved version of Flyer 3, not only does it have a seat for the pilot, but it also has for a passenger. The first airplane passenger experienced the magic of flight in 1908. The sit on the wing with the pilot, so it's a very windy experience that can cause problems because of the fashions of the day. Any woman who flies a passenger has to have her long skirt tied up with a string, preserved her modesty. Now that the pilot is sitting up and not lying in a wrapped cradle, he can't slide to each side to wrap the wings. The bank roll the plane. Instead, he uses control sticks to move the rudders, wings, and elevators. Flight controls. Wing wrapping. Wrapping, twisting the wingtips make the plane bank tilt sideways. Rudders. Turning the rudders swing the plane nose left or right. Control sticks. One stick moves the elevators and another wraps the wings. A third moves the rudders. Elevators. Changing the position of the plane makes the plane rise or fall. Handy hint. Ask your elderly father if he'd like a plane ride. He would. He flies with you on May 25, 1910 at age 82. A modern plane has its elevators and rudder in its tail and uses hinged control surfaces to steer instead of wing wrapping. Showing the world. In 1908, Wilbur fights in France while you demonstrate the plane to the U.S. Army. The Army offered a Wright plane in 1905, but the idea of military airplanes was ridiculous. All goes well until you take Lieutenant T.E. Selfridge up for a flight. Disaster strikes. You crash, Selfridge is killed, and Selfridge is killed. The Army buys the plane anyway. Meanwhile, the French see Wilbur flying so gracefully. They are amazed. Count de la Valette says the Wright plane has revolutionized the aviator's world. Wilbur flights in France. Our front page news everywhere. This magazine cover above shows him flying at Honeydine Rack course near Le Mans in 1908. European aviators are years behind you in France. Alberto Santos Dumont builds an odd airplane called 14 bis. In Britain, the Wild West showman Colonel S.F. Cody is flying an airplane so huge that it is nicknamed Flying Cathedral. Aircraft investigation. You crashed with Lieutenant Selfridge is caused by a cracked propeller that starts vibrating. 1. The shaking loosens the propeller shaft and one of the propeller blades cut through a rudder cable. 2. The loose ends of the wire wind around the propeller blade. 3. And tear it off completely. 4. You stop the engine and try to land, but the plane nose dives into the ground. I'll be advising the Army not to buy this thing. Handy hint. Don't be discouraged by the disaster. One day, plane
will be one of the safest ways to fly.
Plane will be one of the
safest.
One of the safest ways to fly. The end.